Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm BRG and this is episode 1 of Back to Bagpiping. And this episode is going to cover how I got into bagpipes in the first place, how I got at the bagpipes, and then how I got back into bagpipes. So this podcast is for anybody who was passionate about something when they were young and then got away from it for whatever reason. And for me, that's bagpiping. So I started playing the bagpipes when I was probably 13. I took lessons from a private instructor. He was, and still is, I guess, a world champion. A piper. He's been a judge and amazing guy named Scott Walker. So my local high school in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, had a bagpipe band as part of its marching and concert band, and they're known as the Grenadiers. So it was, at the time, it was like a professional band, but we were all high school kids. And the pipe corps, the whole band is fashioned after the Coldstream Guards, and then the pipe corps was part of it. And when the pipe corps was added in the 1970s, it had been created as an all-male group. So I wasn't the first girl. I was actually, I think, the 5th girl that went into it. But unfortunately, all of the girls except maybe one quit before they finished out their high school time. And that's because the boys, who were just typical teenage boys in the 80s, were very, very mean to the girls, both physically and mentally, with hazing and things that went on in the 80s that would never happen today. I have kids, and I think to myself, gosh, there were no adults around when I was in the pipe corps in the 80s. There were like no parents, there were no chaperones, like there was never anybody around, to stop this kind of nonsense. And so the first girl in the band, in the pipe corps, was named Jessie, and she was an excellent player because she too had the same instructor that I had, Scott, and she was an amazing player, but they just bullied her until she quit. And Raquel and Renee, same thing, and a girl named Tammy, I think, made it through all of her years of high school. I'm not sure. But I do know that they taped up her reeds. So even if she could play, and I don't know if she could or couldn't, they didn't let her play. So I come along, and there was something slightly different about me, in addition to having lessons, professional lessons, because the way they teach pipes, you'll appreciate this, is, the tried and true method of teenage kids teaching junior high school students, so, all the bad and good, of poor and sloppy playing gets passed on. But I was fortunate that I had a teacher, but I also had an older brother, and my older brother had been in the pipe corps before me, and he had warned me about how I would be treated, and he wasn't wrong. And he told me this very wise advice. He said, don't ever let them tape up your reed. And so I remember, this one parade or something we were getting ready for, and I was tuning over in a corner somewhere, and this kid, it was this guy Pete, who was particularly a jerk, he came over and he said, wait, you know how to play them? And I was like, why are you surprised? I have like the best pipe teacher in the entire East Coast as my teacher. Like, I wasn't, I wasn't an open player, grade 1 or anything, but, maybe at best a grade 7 if that existed. But I knew how to blow them up. I knew how to play a tune, at least Scotland or something. And I'm thinking, why would, just how does my gender at all play a role in the playing of bagpipes? And it's funny because, fast forward into my 40s, my father's, my stepmother, my father's second wife, she had been in a bagpipe band when she was 13 or 14, and she's in her 70s, and it was all female. So this whole idea that bagpipes were just for boys was a whole lot of nonsense, and but perpetuated by adults. And I love the band director. He was an excellent band director. We were an excellent band, but he knew this was going on, and he let it happen because he didn't want girls in the band, or in the pipe corps. So My senior year, I remember he pulled me aside and he said, you're the best piper that we have. And, I really wish that I could make you pipe major, but you're a girl. So who do you think should be pipe major? And I was like blown away. I was so upset, but I didn't say anything. And I didn't tell my mother because my mother was a fireball and I knew how that was going to go if I told her. So my best friend, Liz, she told my mother, and my mother was furious. She went right to the school board. It was like a big thing. So they made us audition. So for, a bunch of years after, people are like, oh, you only got pipe major because your mom complained. We actually had to audition. There were 4 of us who were contenders, and the band director had to provide the school board with like a rubric of how they were going to decide who was going to be the pipe major, and it was based on grades, and it was based on leadership abilities, and piping itself. And so, none of us were perfect kids, but of those categories, I guess I did score the highest, and he couldn't not give it to me, because I had earned it. So I was the first female pipe major. And you would not believe in the 80s how many people wrote letters to the editor complaining about, how I was ruining tradition. The pipe major does a solo at the big band concert at the end of the year, and they do a lone piper kind of thing where you stand up in the bleachers and you play. I played Highland Cathedral, and all the previous guys from the previous years sat in the place where I was supposed to play and mooed at me. And I was skinny back then. I mean, they mooed at me now. It would totally make sense. But, so it was just nuts. It was just like this crazy, stupid, baloney crap from the 80s. Now, I have since, a lot of the guys from that time period have reached out to me over time. Not all of them, but most of them. And we've made peace and we've buried the hatchet, and they're really good guys now. Like, they have daughters and sons now, and I think they think, holy crap, I hope they don't act like I did. We've buried the hatchet. But, at the time when I was, a young person coming up, a teenager and a young adult, I just remember having to feel like I was perfect at every single song I played, every tune I played, everything that I did. I felt like I had to be perfect, because if I made a mistake, it was because I was a girl, where like somebody else could make a mistake and it was because they were learning a tune. So there was just a lot of pressure on me. And I'm a bit of perfectionist anyway, so it just added to the nonsense. So, so piping was really, really stressful. But what saved the experience for me, and why I didn't bail as soon as it got hot, is that I belonged to a band outside of my high school band, and that was the pipe major was my teacher, Scott, and it was the Lehigh Valley Scottish Society pipe band, and that was a lot of fun. And we did a lot of different like Allentown's parades, and we just did a lot of fun things. And Celtic Festival was starting up, and we were the host band, and it was just a really fun time. And then I went to college and graduate school, and just over time, like, I knew that I didn't have the time to devote to practicing anymore, and I probably wasn't all that great about practicing to begin with. I would practice kind of sporadically when I was at band practice, and I wanted to do other things. I had gotten an internship in Washington, with Congress and Senate, and I wanted to do other things with my life, and I started, I knew that I couldn't devote my time to the band, so I turned in all my things, and then I was just kind of playing weddings and funerals for friends. And at some point, I remember just saying, I kind of don't want to do this anymore. And I know my mom was really disappointed. And if I have any regrets, it's that I didn't return to piping before my parents passed, because I know that they really wanted me to keep playing. But, I went to grad school, started a great career, which I still have. And then I got married and had 2 beautiful boys, 10 months apart, and then it was time for me to be their mother. So I got away from it just because I had kind of burned myself out, and I wanted to do other things, and then, life just catches up with you. And so, over the years, my brother and a bunch of my friends who still played, were trying to get me to play, but I had moved away from Pennsylvania and I lived all over doing cool, fun stuff, and it just wasn't in me. It wasn't my season to do it, and I had no desire to do it, to be honest. I didn't, I wasn't ready to come back. I felt sort of ambivalent about it all. And so Every time I would come home for holidays, my brother would be like, dude, you need to play again. And I'd be like, dude, I'm not feeling it. And so, and that's how it was for 22 years. So I moved back to Pennsylvania in 2019. And, my brother, as always was like, you really should play your bagpipes again. And I said, dude, they got damaged in Hurricane Sandy. They were submerged in a foot of water in my basement. I had thought that they were in my bedroom closet, but they were in the basement, and I didn't know that until we actually moved from Jersey to PA. And he's like, that's not a problem. Get me a bottle of Everclear. Get yourself a new bag. Now, in the time that I had been retired, they invented all kinds of crap for bagpipes that never existed. I think they were just coming out with like the synthetic bags when I stopped playing, and I think easy drones were like out, but nobody I knew had them. They were real expensive. I think they existed, but I was still using a leather bag and cane reeds. And so, coming back into piping all these years later, I'm like, what's a drone enhancer? Like, oh, I can unzip this thing? And the second time, well, I'll tell you this later, but the second time I blew it up, I forgot to zip the bag, and I'm like, why are they broken? So, bagpiping, the world of bagpiping has changed exponentially in the past 22 years. So anyway, I gave my pipes to my brother, and I said, listen, I'm not willing to put a lot of money into them. They're Hardys. They, or what my parents could afford to buy me for graduation. They aren't the best of pipes, but, if you can restore them, great. If you can't, it's okay too, whatever. So he restored them to my absolute surprise, and I'm sure he will post a picture in the comments of what they look like. And he has this great meme that he's made with the before and after shots and the bottle of Everclear that I think he had to drink half of it to get through the smell of the mold. I'm just surprised that he didn't need some kind of hospitalization after. So he restored him, and he's like, dude, you got to come play him. And I was like, Paul, when I played pipes, I was a size 8. I was a swimmer and a diver. I was athletic. I am old and fat now. There's no way I'm going to be able to play these bagpipes. I don't even remember any of the tunes. He's like, you got to remember something. So I did. I remembered how to play Amazing Grace, in my head. I figured I could remember that. So we goosed it. We made it a goose, and he gave me a reed, and I blew it up. Oh, he had to give me a channer too, because I didn't have a channer. I guess the channer I had had been broken, so I didn't have a channer. So he lent me his channer. I blew them up, and I played Amazing Grace, and I actually got through the entire thing without dying. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's wow. So then he put the drones on, and we put some drone reeds in it. I bought some easy drones, and I'm like, what the heck are these? I didn't even know how they worked. I was like, wait, when did reeds turn black? And he's like, well, these are, these easy drones, and you only have to tune them once, and then they blah, blah, blah. And I had no idea. So, we stuck them in, and I could play them with the drones. And I'm having a little bit of issues with the Benny. I call it the Benny bag, the Benetine bag, because, the thing that I can't figure out, and I think it has to do with reed pressure from the forums, that's been the great advice I've gotten, is that I can't just blow up my pipes and have the drones kick in to tune. They double sound unless I strike a note. I have to hit a note. It can be E, it can be A, it can be anything, C, whatever. But they don't and so that's hard, because some of the songs that the one band I play with they do with drones, and people come in one at a time, and then they play. So I have to figure that out. So we'll figure that out together here on this podcast, how to fix that. So my brother got me back to playing, and then I'm like, well, where am I going to play? I started playing on my porch and in my yard. I live on the Appalachian Trail up in Carbon County in Pennsylvania. And, imagine being my neighbor, right? Let's just talk about what it's like to be my neighbor. So I live on the Appalachian Trail, and I moved specifically to the Appalachian Trail so that I could host through hikers. They stay in my yard for free and take showers and do laundry for free. And so during the height of hiking season, there are 16 to 18 tents in my backyard. So, Here's this lady. She moves here from New Jersey to this tiny, tiny small town, Appalachian town, and she's got 16 people staying in her yard, and now she's playing the bagpipes during a pandemic, no less, because this all happened over the year of the plague. So fortunately, they like bagpipes, and fortunately, I know enough songs. Believe it or not, like first I had to find my chanter. Like I had two of them. I had two chanters, and then Dave stepped on one, so now I have one chanter. But fortunately, I found it, and we cleaned it out with. We listen. If you ever need to clean something, ever with of mold, Everclear, it's the way to go. And so I cleaned it with Everclear, and I, started learning some tunes, started practicing Scotland because I didn't remember all of Scotland, Wings and Rowan Tree, the big standards. So I downloaded those pretty quickly. And then my friend Josh, who's a drummer in an Irish-Scottish piping band in South Bethlehem, he's like, hey, you should come and play with our band. And it happened to be the rival of the band that I belonged to many years ago. And a bunch of those jerky teenager boys who had been so awful to me, who I like now, had been in that band. And I'm like, there's no way I can be in that band. They were so horrible to me. There's just no way. And he's like, listen, those guys haven't been in this band for 25 years. Give it a try. So I did, and I met some great people, and I really, really, really like it. It's a social pipe band. It's a street band. A few pipers, lots of drummers, but we have a good time. And I think, they had a reputation in the past for, being a party band, but they are definitely more than that. Like they really are committed to doing a good job and are very proud of. They are the longest standing independent band in the area. They've been around since the 70s, where other bands have come and gone. So, including Lehigh Valley. So, you could say what you want about them, but they definitely withstood the test of time. And I really do enjoy playing with them. And then my brother encouraged me to join Celtic United, which is another fantastic band. And that's a combination of a few different bands. Lehigh Valley players went over to Celtic United. I think when Scott retired or moved on. And then there was a Bethlehem pipe band, or I think technically there still is a Bethlehem pipe band in Bethlehem. But, there are a lot of different reasons why people left that. But I think the biggest reason is they got, the pipe major had gotten banned from Celtic Classic, which is the big event that Bethlehem has, the Scottish Games, and from, I think, the Allentown Parade, which is a big St. Patrick's Day parade in the area. So, so I think there was like a lot of very unhappy pipers that just left. So they went to Celtic United. The Lehigh Valley folks went to Celtic United, and some of Mackay people went over to Celtic United. So, so that's a pretty big band, and that's a lot of fun to play with. They play a lot of really fun tunes, and they're just a great, great group of people. So, I know that typically, pipers don't double dip, but I just like playing, like, because the stress isn't there. Like, I don't care. I don't need to be perfect now. I don't have to prove. There's females in both bands, and I don't have to prove anything anymore. I'm 48 years old. I'm doing this now because I love it. But what I am learning is that I have so much to learn, because I learned a lot of bad habits when I played the first time, and I didn't practice enough. So I learned a lot of bad habits, and one of them is what I call flying fingers. The big like my teeth row is like I'm flipping somebody off. So that's what I've been working on lately, is just like bringing my fingers down. And then a lot of the grace notes, like I don't think I played them clearly back in the day, and so I'm really trying to focus on having clear doublings and tarluas and things like that. So I'm really trying to work on my fingering. So that's kind of where I'm going, and I have a goal. I'm a goal-driven person. That's how I get everything done that I do. And like I do a lot of stuff to begin with. I teach, and I'm an associate dean at Northampton, overseeing educational technology in the online program, which, during COVID was exponential. And I was an English professor before that, and I continue to teach at the Sales University, and I enjoy teaching. And I volunteer for the disaster response team for the American Red Cross, and I specialize in category 4 and 5 disasters. So I could deploy during hurricane season if necessary, and I do local fires and calls for flooding for around here in Carbon County. So, oh, and I do a Girl Scout troop. I'm a leader of a ambassador troop down near my hometown. So I'm a busy, busy girl. So I don't have a lot of time, but I'm choosing to spend my free time now that my boys are older and can make Hot Pockets and clean the loo on their own. I'm choosing to spend my time practicing and playing and relearning the things that I didn't do well before, and being much more serious about it now than I was back then. So if there's any takeaway from this first episode, is that you really can go full circle. When I moved away from Bethlehem, I swore I would never move back here. I actually didn't move back to Bethlehem, so I didn't break my promise to myself. I just said that I would never move back to Bethlehem, and I didn't. I moved to Palmerton, which is 30 minutes away. But I actually am at Northampton Community College, which is where I started my career 22 years ago. So, you can go full circle. Now, I doubt highly that I'm going to go back into competitive diving and swimming. Still like to swim. I ain't diving off anything. But you can go back to things that you love, before, we think we build in our head that we can't do it, that there's this reason or that reason, or I don't have the money, or I don't have the time, or I don't have the skill or whatever. But the truth is that you make time for the things that you're passionate about. And if, it might not have been your season. It wasn't my season. As I was raising my kids, my younger son is disabled. It wasn't my season to play bagpipes because they do require daily playing and focus and attention. So, it wasn't my season, but now it is. So I've come back full circle. Major kudos to my brother Paul for kicking me in the pants to get me to play again. Thank you to Josh for getting me to go with him to Mackay and to suspend, age-old myths and, false information, and giving Mackay a try. And thanks to their pipe major, Kent, and to Celtic United's pipe major, Gene, for letting me play along with them. I've been playing. I came back out of retirement in March, right around St. Patrick's Day, right before St. Patrick's Day, because I did my first event at St. Patty's Day event. And I was just so blessed with how much it came back, how easy it came back. And then the perfectionist in me was like, oh, you need a teacher. So I went out and got a teacher, Matt Willis, who does the YouTube videos. They're very good, and you should go follow him and support him on Patreon. So I knew that I needed to get expert help so that I could get back quicker. But being away for so long didn't impede my ability to come back. So if you have something out there, whatever it is, skydiving, drawing, canoeing, archery, basket weaving, plastic canvas making, whatever it is that you used to be passionate about and you got away from it, you still have a chance to come back to it. So I leave you with that message, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.